Test. All right. Well, good evening. Is everybody good with English for the program? Okay, perfect. Well, really quick, I want to introduce myself. I'm John Peraza. I'm the assistant to the city manager. And I want to thank those of you that are here today for our very important public safety listening session. I believe we have two folks over on Zoom, so we'll incorporate their feedback as well. With us today, we do have some dignitaries and members of our leadership team that I'll introduce, and then those that will come up, I'll introduce as well. From our city council, we have our vice mayor, Dr. Gonzalez, who's in attendance in the room as well. Councilmember Martin Fuentes is joining us in the room as well. We have our city manager, Alfonso Noyola, who's in the room. And we have members of our executive team, including our assistant city manager, Juan Arauz, finance director, Joshua Calhoun, and our community preservation manager, Mr. Raul Mazariegos. So for those via Zoom, we will include your comments during the program as well to make sure that everybody's feedback is incorporated. But I do want to hand it over to our city manager, Alfonso Noyola, who will just make some brief remarks at the beginning of our presentation.
All right, thank you very much for those of you that are on either on Zoom or here in person. This is a very important topic. It's one that the council has been, intimately involved with in trying to address the ongoing issues relating to the incidences that have been happening here in the city, starting with the low-level stuff like graffiti. And then obviously we're aware of some of the incidences that have been going on that are more serious here in our community. So one of the things that the council wanted us to do was to reach out to the community and try to get some input as to, your thoughts and feelings and perceptions about what is or is not happening in the community, and maybe some thoughts about, what you would like to see and how best that we can address some of the issues that are going on. So I don't want to get too much into the weeds with you because we really wanted to listen to you and not necessarily repeat, the things that maybe, I have said or maybe the council has said, but we want to listen to what you have to say and then take those comments and bring them forward to the council so that they have another perspective, right, without coloring that opinion of what the community may have. So tonight, we're going to turn it over to staff. Hopefully, you feel very open to share with us your thoughts, your feelings. There's going to be some time where we will have you filling out some information for us. Those online will be able also to submit their responses, correct? And then we will be reading those as well so that we kind of capture all of those that are participating today. So tonight is not the first of the meetings, but or it is the first, but it won't be the last. We have several other meetings, and I would encourage at least those of you that showed up tonight to please encourage your friends, your neighbors, whomever that live here in Cudahy to participate in one of these sessions that we have going on. Very important that we try to reach out and get as diverse of a perspective as we can in the community. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to our assistants to the city manager, who will be kind of helping go through this program. We do have staff here that will be assisting. At one point, we were going to break out in groups. We were hoping we're going to have a lot of people. Looks like we'll probably just have one group, and that'll be just as helpful. So with that, John.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. And really quick, the first activity that we'll be doing, we're going to be doing what's called written feedback. So when you came in, hopefully you signed in, provided your phone number and email so we can add you to the city's notification list. But right after our community preservation manager speaks, I'm going to have Eric, who's back there, collect your index cards. Please write down a question or a comment, and then, I'll read it out loud, and we'll address it in that way, and then we'll have other details in the program that we're going to go over. But introducing him again is Raul Mazariegos. He's our community preservation manager. He's going to highlight a little bit about initially, what City Hall is doing right now, and then speaking a little bit more specifically to public safety.
Good evening, guys. My name is Raul Mazariegos, Community Preservation Manager. So real quick, I wanted to go over our services that we have. So what I'm going to point here is gonna be our Nixle. If you guys are not in communication with the city, we have Nixle here. You can always text Cudahy and the number, and that's how you'll get information with the city. Also, for graffiti reporting, you can always call City Hall, or you can always go to My Cudahy app. And another thing that we are offering here is your animal control services. For any animal control cases that you want to report, you can always go to My Cudahy app or contact City Hall. Another thing that we are starting to enforce is our bulky items throughout the city. Again, you can always call City Hall, or you can always call Republic Services, and the number is there. One of the things that I did want to mention too, in regards to our sheriff's department deployment, we have two deputies in the daytime with one special event officer in the day. And then we have two deputies at night and then one deputy in the early mornings. Normally, whenever there is an incident, obviously you see more deputies, and that's because they're coming from other cities to assist the deputies that are here in our city. Okay, so with that, again, we don't want to take too much time. We want to get more information from you guys on what um, you guys feel that we need more here in our city. All righty?
Thank you so much, Rose. So at this time, for those of you that have your comments or questions, Eric, if you don't mind collecting those or raising them, and then we'll call those to the front in a moment. And if there's a question that maybe you don't want to ask in public, we are going to have our staff that's going to be available after the workshop as well. Okay, so the first question here that we have is what's being done about crime? So both Raul and I will speak to this, and we're going to go into more detail later on in the presentation. The City Council recently adopted what's called the Cudahy Safe Plan. In this plan, we are detailing as a city a detailed approach to crime prevention and gang violence intervention. It's a two-prong approach. One, it's working with our law enforcement. We have a contract with the LA County Sheriff's Department to see where we can come up with resources for the community to increase visibility, either through gang intervention programs or other operations that the LA County Sheriff's Department has. We do want to be transparent with residents. We want to be honest about that conversation. There are some challenges, obviously, because of staffing difficulties that the Sheriff's Department has had of late, so we want to be able to be transparent about that. Now, the second part of it is how are we working on the holistic approach? Part of what is included in the plan is a select group of nonprofits to help us do case management in the community, host workshops, focus on the youth that is at risk in the schools to make sure that before a crime's committed, early on, we're able to kind of get them back on the right path. Right now, the city is working with a nonprofit called Inner City Visions to submit, a grant to the state for up to $450,000 for case management in the community, which would include public engagement, other support services that we can offer members of the community. But beyond those two options, we do have a public safety committee here in the city that is looking at alternative policing methods. Right now, city staff is researching what that looks like. This was adopted about 2-3 council meetings ago. We will be having, as we have more listening sessions, we will be providing an update as to, what alternatives are there available, cost effectiveness, and their effectiveness to deter crime. So I'll speak to that. Masariegos, did you want to add anything else? No? Okay, perfect. Do we have any other questions? Okay, so we have some comments here. Some of these comments, obviously, if they touch base on a previous question, we'll still note them. All this information we'll be sharing with our council and our city manager who are here. The first request is, having more police present in the community. This is feedback that definitely staff and the city council are echoing out to our sheriff's department. As mentioned, there's a moratorium that the sheriff's department currently has. So even as we've requested for more staffing, they've had their difficulties as well. However, we are looking at different ways to improve deployment, for peak times in the community. Uh, the next the next comment, I believe that says more parking enforcement. Raul Mazariegos, I'll let you speak to that. And the comment is more parking enforcement.
Alrighty. So in regards to more parking enforcement, we do have 2 part-time parking enforcement officers and 2 full-time. So we have a total of 4 parking enforcement, and it's more hybrid. You know, they do parking enforcement and they do code enforcement as well. Okay, in regards to looking for more officers, that'll be in the near future, and we're looking into the budget on that.
Thank you. The next question or comment here is what are we doing with all the shootings and crimes that are happening? So unfortunately, we are all aware of the incidents that we've had related with some of the youth and some of these shooting incidents. That kind of goes back to the root of the problem, right? We've noticed concerns related to absenteeism and truancy with some of the youth that have been involved. The city is actively having conversations with LA Unified, with the police department, with the LA County Sheriff's Department on, how can we get these kids off the street, back into the classroom. And for those kids that need additional support services, whether it's career development, anger management, additional support at home, we're working with nonprofits to bring in some of those resources into the community. And then the last comment or question here is merging with another police department. The city council has given direction to the Public Safety Committee to look into alternative policing methods. One of the items that was brought up as part of that discussion, and it's been shared by our mayor and vice mayor and members of the council online, is that there is an alternative potentially with the Bell Police Department. Obviously, because that would be a massive undertaking. We're looking at the benefits, cost effectiveness, and we'll be providing an update in the next couple of months, if not sooner, obviously, to the community. The next question here is, why not have a satellite station at Clara? This is feedback that we will provide over to the Sheriff's Department and discuss internally on how we can increase visibility in the community. Why not have a family-friendly eating area like Bellflower Steelcraft? We have many empty lots causing a public safety issue. So one of the things that our community development department, our economic development team are frequently doing is how can we best bring economic development opportunities into the community, to beautify the community, to give people in our community a space to hang out, have entertainment. We do have an entertainment zone alongside Atlantic Boulevard here in the city. So hopefully this is one of the things that will be included. Raul, not sure if you want to speak a little bit more about why not having a family-friendly eating area like Bellflower Steelcraft. Sure. And thank you for clarifying the question on this. Yes. Oh, Tata. And for the Zoom, let me just clarify so they can hear it on the Zoom as well. We started off with the question about a potential Steelcraft-like Bellflower, but the question has been expanded to discuss what are we doing about the sidewalk street vendors.
Okay, yes, there has been a proliferation of the street vendors, and we recognize that. However, we do as a city enforce certain public safety issues, such as, you can't be parking or blocking red curves. Yes, I understand, I drive the city and I see them parked in red curves. We ask them to move. And if you notice out on, Florence, for the most part, they haven't been there in the last couple, 2, 3 weeks. At least they weren't there when I've been driving by. I know that they're going into other areas. We will be also looking at that as well. One of the things that we're taking on as the staff is council has asked us to look at trying to find a location where we can centralize them. So we are looking at a place. We're working with the county specifically to get a grant to assist us in bringing them into one location. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. And the reason for that is because we've got to have a location, we've got to meet all the public health requirements, and then we have to have them, get licensed. And that is by far one of the biggest hurdles. They don't want to get licensed. And we have had a number of sessions with them previously. We've told them what the requirements are, and not one has gone to go get it. We've even engaged nonprofits that supposedly have done this before, and it turns out that the nonprofits we've talked to have not been able to get not one to go and get themselves licensed. So, we're trying to, navigate this and see if we can't be at least the first success story. I will tell you that at a place called Pico Rivera, everybody knows that, the sports, the horse place, they have a pretty successful night market there, right? But it's ran by a private entity that the city has hired. That private entity takes on all the responsibilities for ensuring that everyone in there is licensed and meets all the public health requirements. So nobody in there is not licensed and, has all their food permits and all that kind of stuff to be able to do that. And that's what we want to achieve here. So we have reached out to that particular agency and others to see if they're willing to come over and kind of replicate that here. And at this point, we still haven't gotten any feedback yet from them as to whether or not they're interested in doing that. But we are trying to be proactive and at least address it in a way that provides space for everybody, right? That's what the council would like to see. And so we're trying to address that as best as we can. I'm hoping that we're successful. We're certainly putting every effort forward, but we'll see, proof is in the pudding, right? So we'll see how that happens. I did want to mention a couple of other things as far as the crime that's been happening and what we're doing about that. So besides engaging nonprofits that are specifically trained to do this type of engagement, particularly with gang intervention and that sort of thing, is that we have been having discussions with public agencies, the school district, other police departments, other cities, to learn about what they have done to curb, the problems. And, it really comes down to resources. And unfortunately, Cudahy is not a very affluent society or community that has a lot of resources. And so we really need to find those resources. We've been working with the county, trying to find grant dollars to be able to fund some of these programs to be able to bring them in and get them instituted here so that we can address those problems. I think we're going to be making some headway here. I just don't know how much that's going to be. But we're still negotiating with the county and other agencies to see if there's some way that we can get additional funds here. For now, yeah. So right now, I think our total budget for the sheriff's department is $4.7 million a year. And if you think about it, I think he mentioned that we have two, sheriff's departments that are on most of the day and night. And then we have one dedicated that is here Monday through Thursday And she's the one that kind of you see at a lot of our functions and what have you. That's what cost us $4.7 million. Yes, it is. It is. Well, the reality is because we don't have the economic base that produces the sales tax and all the other different types of revenues, and we don't have the geography. You know, land means that you have more opportunity, more businesses that can come in. You know, manufacturing, whatnot. I will tell you that $4 million represents about 30% of 35% of the general fund. And the unfortunate news is that that's going up. We have some preliminary numbers, and it's going to go up over $5 million come July. That's not sustainable for the city like us. Now, what I will tell you is that the sheriff's department, does charge for everything that they provide, right? But given what we've had going on, there's been a lot of resources that have been dedicated to Cudahy, and a lot of them you don't see that we have not paid for. And they've done that because they're trying to help us address the problems that we have. And you're right. Unfortunately, last night, early this morning, there was yet another shooting. Very unfortunate. This makes number 4 in less than a year, and 3 in the last 3 months. I suspect that there's going to be some additional ramping up of the sheriff department resources to start really, handling this situation. In addition to that, we've already reached out to the county to make them aware, if they haven't already heard, that this is number 4, and we need assistance. Not 6 months from now, we need it now. And so we're hoping that that our call for help will be answered very quickly, and doesn't take a long time before we start seeing some additional resources. Beyond that, what the sheriff's is doing, because the sheriff just answers the immediate concern. What we need is a program. It's called case management, right? We need a program. We need the dollars in place to have boots on the ground that really address the issue long term, because you don't fix this overnight. This is going to be something that's going to be very long term, and it's going to take some years because we've got to get in there. We've got to handle the issues that we have, and this is not just a city issue. This is city. This is the parents. This is the school district, and this is some other agencies that need to step up. And so I have been meeting in the last 2 weeks. I've lost count of all the agencies and nonprofits that I've talked to. We're not done yet. But I think next on the list is we're waiting for an appointment with the district attorney's office because they got to play a role in this as well. It's unacceptable that our children are dying. And so, we're taking this seriously. We're trying to get, all the players involved, and in essence, create a task force of multiple agencies and nonprofits to be able to deal with this and help us out. Did I answer your questions? Yes, ma'am. ¿Por quién? Sí. Sí, inafortunadamente, como estaba yo diciendo, que el dinero que tenemos para pagar lo del shares solo incluye dos patrullas o dos oficiales las 24 horas, pero eso no incluye tráfico. Y en realidad, aunque todos los policías pueden mirar por el tráfico, no lo hacen. ¿El por qué? Porque están llamada por llamada por llamada y no tienen el tiempo para estar esperando a ver quién está pasando rápidamente. Yo sé que no es lo que quiera escuchar, pero es lo que está pasando. Sí. Ya, ya. No, de acuerdo. Y de eso del graffiti, hemos estado hablando con los residentes y los dueños de las casas para decir, oye, si nos dan el permiso, lo quitamos nosotros. Ahora, no podemos decir que va a ser exactamente el mismo color, pero más o menos esperamos que sea lo suficiente. Hoy en día hay un poco menos, pero todavía hay. No, ya lo he visto este fin de semana, ya lo he visto y bien, bien grande que está. So, pero estamos intentando. Yes. So staff has been working on this issue for about a year now. We've tried to talk with the vendors. We brought in nonprofits. The council has even provided some contacts of nonprofits that deal with the vendor community. And to date, we haven't been able to get any of them to go to training. One of the things obviously is, oh, it costs money. Well, yeah, it does. But the other piece is that supposedly the equipment that they would need to have to be compliant with county public health codes is pretty expensive, as in like 20 plus $1,000 apparently. And of course, no vendor has that kind of money. And many of the programs that the county has for small micro business startups does not really provide that level of support for that. We are trying to work with the Office of Economic Opportunity to see whether or not there's some way that we can bridge that gap. And one of the ways that we're thinking that we might be successful in is that the city, through a grant from the county, will be able to provide a cooking facility that's portable, where if everybody is centralized in one location, then they can use that kitchen and then sell their things there in that particular location. So we think we have the location. We've had those discussions with the county. And we do have a committee of two council members that we've been briefing and floating these ideas. They've been sharing their thoughts with us. And so we think we're getting closer to hopefully instituting that solution. But really, we're at a point now where we need to get kind of a nod from the county as far as whether or not they're able to support that. I believe that we've got some training sessions coming up for the vendors themselves, right?
Yeah, and yeah, so that's my area of project that I've been working with our community development team. So as it relates to the street vendors, sidewalk vendors, we're going to be having a workshop. I believe it's April 7th. And we're going to have a series of them, and that'll be in partnership, not just with code enforcement, community preservation, excuse me, our city staff, but it's also going to include the Department of Economic Opportunity as to what resources they have available. They do have limited resources, but there are some areas where we could potentially work together and collaborate on. But the big component of that workshop is going to be the Department of Public Health. What are the permitted uses? What are the not permitted uses? What does the fees look like? What does the actual process of getting a permit look like? One of the things that we did about 2 months ago as part of, hey, we need to find out why do we have this ongoing concern in the community, is identify, well, what are the challenges for a lot of the street vendors, and what are some of the things that they need to be able to become compliant. Understandably, we understand people, want to be out there and making their honest living. But it's, we do have to balance public safety with that aspect. So with that being said, we're going to have that workshop on the 7th. Two or 3 weeks ago, we had a night market vendor that came out to the city to look at a potential site here in the community for us to have a night market. Because if we want to get them off Patata, we want them to get their permits, but they should also have a dedicated space where they can be safe and provide quality food or services to the community. So that's all part of an ongoing process that we're having with our city council. Luckily, I want to say about a month ago, our city council gave us the nod on our street vending plan with some tentative deadlines, which we'll be taking back to them later this week, and then providing a more formal presentation to the council. But just to piggyback off of what the city manager said, we're working with the county agencies to get some resources that we need. We want to put them in a safe spot, but a lot of them, the taquero that has that big, the meat out there, that's just not permitted by public health. But there are uses that are permitted to allow them to still have a business out of their home or being compliant, right? So all of that information we're trying to trickle down in the next couple of weeks.
Right. Right. Yeah. So the enforcement originally was going to start April 1st, but because of scheduling, trying to get the county out here and whatnot, it's now moved to May 1st. So we will be asking the council, hey, once all this training is done, once the opportunity has been given to them, if they don't do that, then we do need to start enforcing. And so we want to make sure the council's aware so that they are on board and they're supporting staff as well. Because at the end of the day, we can't have, staff doing one thing, the council wants something else, and then that doesn't work either, right? Right. Well, that's the high end. We're trying to find something that's a little bit more reasonable. Right. Right. And so, and one of the things that's kind of important that the vice mayor said is, um, we do know that there's going to be a section of them that just do not want to do it. Okay, then they should not be on the streets. They shouldn't be in that place. One of the things that I forgot to mention is, we look around in the community beyond Cudahy, right? There used to be all over the place. You still find some pockets here and there of people that are doing it, right? But, we do know, yeah, Pico Rivera is one of them. So we do know, as an example, Bell. So Bell has a night market. And have you been there? And you see that there's some food being sold. Guess what? They're all licensed. But what you also don't see is the things that are not allowed if you have license and if you follow the public health requirements, like that rack. You can't have that because it doesn't matter whether you have a kitchen. You cannot have that under the public health requirements. What you do see sold there are things that are prepackaged, but they're all licensed. And that's what the key is. So that means that our street vendors are going to have to potentially adjust to the laws. And if they don't adjust, then, they can't be selling, after a certain date. Now, we have been enforcing, and what we are enforcing today is something that we have been enforcing for quite some time, and that is the following. A street vendor cannot set up anywhere where there's a red curb. If they're in front of the red curb, regardless of whether they left enough room for a wheelchair to go through on the sidewalk, they still cannot do that. The reason for that is because they are obstructing the vehicular right-of-ways and their view. There's a reason why there's red curbs there. It's because, you're at the corner, you got to be able to see around, and they generally are blocking the view. So they are being asked to move. So as we see it, we do ask them to move. And probably 90% of the enforcement actually has to do with that. The big thing on Florence was the red curb, right? The other thing that we all know, since you have frequented, the vendors, you'd like to buy their food, right? Is do you park at the red curb to go get your tacos? You're not allowed to park there. Nobody is, for no reason whatsoever. Red curb means no stopping, no parking. And so what happens is if they do park there, they're encouraging people to do what? To violate the California state laws relating to traffic circulation. Can't allow that to happen. The other thing that we will ask people to move is if they are blocking the sidewalk and a wheelchair cannot get through, they're asked to move. And I say ask because at this point, we're getting about 97, 98% compliance when we stop and we tell them you need to move. We don't tell them that they can't sell. We tell them you need to move. You have to go to an area where, the following things, are not being affected. And then the following weekend, where do we find them? 9 times out of 10, same place. And so every time our folks are going there, we have made a list of who those vendors are that are repeated vendors, and they just don't listen. And we do provide that list to the council. And unfortunately, we can't arrest them. They're not doing anything criminally wrong, right, at this point. And even if we write a citation, who are we going to write it to? Because they're not telling us their names. They're not telling them, where they live. And so, it becomes a little difficult for staff to be able to enforce if, we don't have arrest powers, we don't have, the right information to cite, somebody to give them, an administrative citation. So it becomes more difficult for us, right? But I will tell you, at least we're getting a high percentage of voluntary compliance when they're told the rules. And in fact, I will tell you one thing that was actually helpful to us was the mayor actually put a flyer out online that, talked to the vendor community, said, these are the things that are getting enforced and you need to comply with them. And, as soon as we hear, well, the council or well, the mayor, we go, no, here's the flyer. This is what the mayor said, and this is what the mayor means. And once they see that flyer, it kind of shuts them up. Because what do people do? They try to, bring in, oh, well, so-and-so said that. Well, I don't think so. This is what they really said. And this is, by the way, on the website that the vendors go to get information. So we are trying everything we can to get compliance. We're still dealing with, maybe 5% or so of the vendor community that just are not doing that. I know that it's overflowing from Patata. Now it's going over to Santa Ana. We're starting to see them from the gas station start moving back. We have hit that space a couple times, and we'll continue doing that to let them know that, unless the laws change for traffic circulation, they can't be there. And so, we're trying to get that compliance voluntarily as much as we can. All right. So I'll turn it over for any other questions.
All right, perfect. So we had one index card that we got. And then in a second, if you're still on Zoom, if you can put your question or comment in the chat, Raul. Oh, you have the card.
All right, so this one says, safety at parks, what is being done, homeless and drug slash drinking activity? All right, so for the safety at parks, just so you guys know, we have been patrolling a little bit more. Um, there was a homeless individual, I don't know if you guys saw him at Clara Expansion behind the restrooms. That gentleman actually sought resources. So right now he's at Bell Shelter. We kept in contact with the organization that took him over there. And right now he's currently, he got his California ID. And so now another thing that he's going through the process of is getting a job. So you won't be seeing that gentleman that was out there for a long period of time over at Clara Expansion. We're continuously patrolling the area, making sure that there isn't any homeless out there. Um, First line of defense is going to be us, parking enforcement, patrolling the parks. And if anything, if we don't get compliance from the homeless, then we call the sheriff's department and we do offer some resources. All right. In regards to Clara Park, we did have a female and a male there. Every morning when I start my work, I go out there, I patrol the area, and we tell them that they got to leave because obviously they're camping out. During the daytime, if they're hanging out, obviously it's a public park, so they can be there, but we're monitoring the area as much as we can to make sure that we don't see any signs of them camping out. For Lugo Park, again, we're out there patrolling the area as much as we can. Anybody that we see signs that they're trying to camp out, we remind them that it's not a camping ground. And obviously, it is a public park, so we do allow them to be there for a period of time, depending on what they're doing. All right, the other question here is lighting at parks. So for the lighting at parks, I know our Public Works Department is working, checking all the lights at the parks. We also have a contract company that if it's something that we can handle, then we'll get the contract company to fix those lights as well. And then here it says increase response time for the sheriff's department. And then accountability for lack of response from the sheriff's department.
All right, perfect. And I think our city manager will make a brief remark.
So I just want to add a couple of comments as it relates to the issues dealing with the homelessness in our parks. And, I think there's a perception and then there's a reality. So I want to clear that so that we understand what really is happening. So our parks are maintained by our staff every single day of the week, except for, I believe, Sundays. We do not have staff to do 24/7 of our parks. It's not possible. We just don't have enough staff. But what we did have is they work Monday through Saturday, and they work during the day. And about 8 o'clock or so at night is when the last of our staff go home. So between 8 o'clock at night and about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, we don't have staff out there. We just don't. So, there's a perception that, oh, homeless have been there for days. Because when you look at what that looks like, it looks like, oh my God, they've been here for 3, 4, 5, 6 days. So what we're doing now is staff has been directed when they go out every day to do their duties, when they first come into any facility, be it a restroom, anywhere in the park, take a picture. Because a picture is worth 1,000 words. That's what it looked like at 7 o'clock when I came in on duty. And oh, by the way, when they leave at night, take a picture because that's what it looked like. So we know that it didn't happen during the time that they were there. And what we're finding is that, let's face it, even those that, are homeless, they know what time our staff come and go. And guess what they do? It's amazing how well equipped they are to actually break in, even though we have soldered, some of the doors closed. Amazing how they can get in. They get in and they set up home. And it literally, it's overnight. And by the time we get there in the morning, it's amazing what we find in there. Now, we are taking, the steps to make sure that we document how staff leaves things and how they find things so that we know, okay, this is the window of when things are happening. And if it's happening because we don't have enough staff, now we have to address how do we bridge that? And of course, one of the answers is, oh, well, just, spread your staff out. Well, we can't because we don't have enough to be able to, if you spread everybody out, then that means we can't do any of the more complex or safety related kinds of things that take a minimum of two people to be there to make sure that, you watch in case somebody gets hurt, right? So you have somebody to call if there's an issue. We don't have the staff. So absent of that, we've got to figure out other venues of how we're going to have eyes on the park. We've looked at, and in fact, the three parks projects, the three major projects, we've added into that cameras. But cameras doesn't stop anybody, it just records it, right? So it's the same thing as we take a picture at night, and in the morning, all of a sudden we see somebody had camped out. Well, now the camera will tell us about what time they went in, right? And, who knows whether or not we'll be able to see their face. Hopefully we will, don't know. But at least it captures what really has occurred. So again, now, ultimately the question is going to be, how do we provide additional, good security so that we're not adding additional costs to the city to repair and maintain our facilities when staff is not around? So that's really what it's going to come down to. But I did want to make sure that we address the perception. Oh, they've been there this whole time for days. In almost all cases, that's not the case. What really is happening is when staff goes home, they break in, and then in the morning, by the time staff comes over to, clean the bathrooms or whatever, that's when we find the issue. And oftentimes what happens is staff waits, they call the sheriff's department to come and to clear the place out because we don't know if those people, are dangerous, not dangerous and whatnot. And we want to make sure our staff feels safe as well when they're out doing their duties.
Okay, thank you, Al. So with that, I don't see we have any chats or hands raised. On the Zoom, we'll give them a quick second if they want to raise their hand. Or two folks on there? No hands, Danny? Okay, all right, perfect. So, yes.
There was a request for additional crossing guards. And so, which one? Yes. And we have actually approached the principal previously. They said they didn't want one. And so now we're approaching again and asking the principal again, look, parents have come to complain. Do you want a crossing guard or not? But it's my understanding that, we have, I think we're spending somewhere in the neighborhood of about 60 some $1,000 a year. How much? 89,000 a year in crossing guards for all of our schools. So, we are expending the money. They are out there. Sometimes we even, receive complaints about the crossing guards, so we know that they're there. The question is, that one particular day, was there only one because the other one was sick? That we don't know. And we would have to check specifically what happened with the staffing at that particular school for that day. I don't know where all exactly the crossing guards are. We can look into that. But again, I mean, we don't have one at every intersection where there's a crosswalk. We do it at obviously all the high volume areas where there's a concern. Yeah, yeah. And this was at Live Oak? Okay, we'll have to check into that, right?
Yeah, so our community preservation team is gonna go ahead and look into that, and internally we'll review it. As the city manager mentioned, we did extend an invitation, if you will, to all the schools. If they feel they need assistance with the crossing guards, by all means to let us know. The city is expensing resources to make sure that our kids are safe in the community, not just when they're leaving their home, but actually getting to school and on their way back. But seeing that we don't have any more questions or comments, last question, Susie, so we can. Thank you, Susie, for that question, and we'll have that be the last one for this portion. I think I can say with our city manager here, our city council here, the city has had difficulties working and partnering with LA Unified. That is not a secret. That has been discussed in previous council meetings. Our sheriff's department would love to come onto the campus and not just meet with the parents or meet with the principal, but also reinstate some of the old programs like the Dare, other programs that keep kids off the street, and setting those programs aside, actually building a genuine working relationship with the school. Unfortunately, at this time, and it's no secret, this is just, it's been said many times, LA Unified does not permit the LA County Sheriff's Department to come on campus unless they need to be called for an incident. The same applies to even their own police department, which we sent out a briefing earlier today to our city council. The police department for LA Unified is not allowed to go on campus unless they're called for an incident. So there are certain policies that the city will be discussing with LA Unified at the superintendent's office, at the Board of Education level, because public safety in our community goes beyond patrolling. It's a holistic approach, and yes, it goes to building that partnership with the schools, which unfortunately has been lacking because of some of the policies that LA Unified School District has. And this has been referenced in several meetings that we've had at the city council, that there have been some difficulties in strengthening that relationship with LA Unified. So in the couple of weeks, and as a matter of fact, and probably in the next 2 weeks, we'll be meeting with LA Unified, with the Board of Education, with our representative with on the board, to advocate for a stronger relationship. So we just want to be straightforward about that, we would love to have the Sheriff's Department. They've indicated that they would love to come to the campus, build that partnership, but unfortunately at this time, LA Unified does not permit it. Okay. So with that, the next portion of our presentation tonight, we were going to do breakout groups. Obviously, we have a cozier crowd, if you will, but really just to recap or to point out some of the general themes of tonight, right? What does safety mean to you? What are some areas of concern? We've noted these down, and we'll leave these writing pads up here at the end of the meeting if you want to put up a question or put in a parking, if you will, some feedback. More visibility, right? There was a comment about having a satellite station, sidewalk vending. We want to do some rev up enforcement. More visibility in the community, whether that means more resources, better deployment, working with the Sheriff's Department, parking enforcement, we've spoken on that. Alternative policing, whether that means we merge with another police department, somebody else provide policing services, or discuss other options with the Sheriff's Department. Shooting concerns, right? We've had 4 in the last year, 3 unfortunately within the last 3 months. Communication, which really goes back to the response or empathy of the LA County Sheriff's Department when they're coming out to answer for calls. having clean streets is part of what we're hearing from you defines a safe community. Again, enforcement, we've kind of touched base on that a couple of times. Park safety, public safety also means making sure that our parks are clean, safe, and that we have the security presence to make sure that they're being well taken care of. And following up on traffic safety with the schools, which our staff has noted. Yes, and I'll just repeat one more time if there's anybody that would like to raise their hand or if they have any feedback they would like to share via chat. And Daniela, let me know because I can't see it that far. No? Okay, perfect. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the slide related to the community survey. So Eric, if you don't mind handing out those flyers. So the city right now, all the way through April 20th, is conducting a survey, a very detailed survey in the community, businesses, residents. We want, a complete picture of what your experience has been, not just necessarily with crime or law enforcement, but what has your experience been with the LA County Sheriff's Department? What are some of your ideas or suggestions to make public safety better in our community? So we'll be doing that all the way through April 20th. We're going to be holding a plethora of meetings similar like this. Hopefully we can increase participation at each community meeting, but that's the QR code. You can scan it. It's on our social media. Nixle, our email list. You can get the flyer on the way out. Next slide. And really, what are our next steps? So as we mentioned earlier, the city council has a public safety committee. The city staff will be reporting back to them the feedback we received tonight and the feedback that we will receive over the next couple of meetings, and have an updated plan that will be presented to the city council. And again, we'll notice that to the public. We did adopt the Cudahy Safe Plan, as I mentioned earlier, which is a preliminary approach to that holistic view on law enforcement and support services for the community with nonprofits, the county, on how we can improve public safety in our community. And like I mentioned, I think I just be repeating myself that until April 20th, we're going to be soliciting feedback. We have council meetings as well that you can come and participate at any time. And we're going to have future listening sessions in the next couple of weeks here. So with that, before we, as we end here, we're going to have city staff here available if you have any questions. I know one of our council members is here if you have any questions or comments as well. But before you leave, Eric has some sticky notes on the top. We want to see kind of a crime map as to where you feel we could do better in terms of deployment, or where you perceive that we are having more incidents or more crime. So if just check in with Eric, we'll post it up here, and we'll also share that with our council and with the Sheriff's Department to see if what you're seeing matches with some of the data. But with that, thank you for being here. Al, do you want to say anything to close off? Okay, perfect. Thank you guys for being here. Have a good night.